And James is also going to be our host this afternoon for a Star Journey tour. That is his facility. So James is a citizen of the world. He is dedicated to understanding and communicating the story of our planet from the perspective of the world's Aboriginal indigenous cultures. He shares these cultures' star lore by exploring their art, architecture, and sacred teachings. And today his presentation is on Alchemy of the Stone. Let's welcome James.
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank Alan. I think if I knew Alan when I first started my journey, it sure would have helped. Okay, and one other thing, I want to acknowledge all the artists in the salon because I think that, for me as an artist, it was extremely inspiring. And whoever is part of that, just keep up the good work. Okay? However, for myself, I wasn't actually an artist in the beginning. I was a North African scholar, very left-brain, a pinnacle of my career, I would say. And I had a volatile spiritual awakening. And I won't go into the details. You can either read it in my book, or if you want me to, I will. What happened, however, was that I had a grandfather spirit with very long hair, like 10 feet long, in vision, say to me that you're not who you think you are. You will never do this again, and you will become an artist, and you will paint totally for the creative source, or, in their words, all there is. You must forget everything you know. That was a big one for me. I don't know about the rest of you. And you will build temples and paint on canvas and murals and sacred sanctuaries for men. Those were mine, and in my words these days I would call them cosmic instructions. Of course, at first I thought of someone else. We're talking about parallel universes. That's about all I knew as far as quantum physics. Is it had to be, it was a mistake. But of course, when you have that kind of experience, as probably a lot of you have had, spiritually you know the Kundalini is up and so on and so on. I didn't know anything, okay? So I was paralyzed. I was terrified. So I went home and I was writing in my journal because I was a researcher, so of course I would have a journal. And I remember just writing just what I'm telling you. And all of a sudden, some force grabbed my hand right across the notebook and started writing and saying, I'm a light warrior, I'm an archangel, blah, blah, blah. Well, at that point, I think I really thought I had lost it. But I did have to pay attention because it was in the physical. And a lot of you probably are already doing automatic writing, maybe. This was a little different. I would call this, in the archangel's words, this would be cosmic shorthand. In the beginning, in the notebooks that I started, which I now have 133, by the way, I never gave up. I still do it every day. It's where everything I've created, pretty much my thoughts from higher self, other higher intelligences, star visitors, all of that are in my journals. I never stopped. But in the beginning, it was, to say the least, pretty upsetting when you have someone just grab your hand. The thing is, I've had several writing analysis, on these books. I know the people that are trance channels, you get one particular being. This was several. The other thing this grandfather spirit said to me was that there would be many that would come. I never knew who that was in the beginning. I'm assuming they were all going to be indigenous, ancestors. Well, that wasn't true, of course. But that's how it started. And of course, have never painted in this lifetime. So this was a huge leap for me. But I must say that I did move forward. Here we go. And this is what I created. They called it a light laboratory. And the first series of paintings I did, which is somewhat related to the last presentation, were stargates. Stargates for ancient and indigenous cultures around the world. And the idea was that we have a guardian, so we're in there, for the stargates. This particular one is Inca. This one here is Hopi. This is my studio, which they actually call a light laboratory, which of course, years later, when I finally know what alchemy is, I realized how similar. At the time, however, it was just a stretch. And as you can see, I started painting the walls. These are various paintings that I'll be doing later, actually. And then the floor, which at first was a little bit, that goes in and out, doesn't it? Sorry. I wasn't sure exactly why we were doing that. But the whole point, at least for me in this part, was expansion. And it was about surrendering and trusting without having a clue. Now, I live here in Santa Fe, which is filled with psychics and seers, okay? But I didn't know anyone, and I didn't trust anyone. And in truth, it was really my strength, okay? Because I wrote every night, I had these operations, I went through visions for hours, and it was every night, I might add. So I just kind of hung with it, I have to be honest, like halfway, let's say 4, 5, 6 months, I would say I thought it would just stop. You have to understand where I'm coming from in the point of being an intellectual and being so left-brained to like being an artist.
Yeah.
I was an art historian, okay, and you just don't bridge normally. So where was all this coming from? I wasn't sure. I had the archangels talking to me. I had various deities from all over the planet. Earth as well as other bugs. In fact, quite a few from off-planet. Anyway, I moved from these to then the next series of paintings. Sorry. And we heard of more stargates. Of course, some of you probably know the Dogon. The other thing with these stargates was, and this is what I was told to do, again, having that left brain, I felt like I was going to be like Robert Temple, you know who that is, who wrote the Syrian mystery. I could do all this research and find out about Sirius and all these different cultures with Sirius, but that isn't what we were going to do. So I did do some research because all of these cultures have, actually incredible star lore and star wisdom. And when you were asking before in your presentation, these cultures have lots of encounters, and they have for a very long time. So one of the things I was told is that we were going to use, all of these symbols and so on. As much as I would like to say, I made all this up, I didn't. It's very real. Here we go. Then I did a whole series of masters, 10 more paintings. Huge paintings, 4 by 7 feet. Blue Eagle, Star Priest of the Ancient Ones. Ganesh, probably most of you know. But I never saw him blue. That was a whole other thing for me. Merlin, Isis, and Sekhmet. And I was told I was bringing them to a higher frequency, not the one that most of us see. That this was like, in their words, star consciousness. What is star consciousness? I didn't know. Yet. Then I had another encounter with, I know most of you know, Saint Germain. And I have to say at this moment that if it wasn't for Saint Germain and the archangels, I would not be standing here. I knew nothing about alchemy, except for the preconceived notions that most of you have already heard, I'm sure, many times about moving from lead to gold and back and forth. Okay, in this painting, however, he asked me to do 33 paintings of alchemy. At first I was like, That's a lot of paintings, first of all. But they were smaller. That was the good news. The other thing was is that I did them in diptychs in the beginning. Like this is, prima materia, which a lot of you now know because we've had some great presentations on it. It's chaos, it's imagination, it's lumen, natura, it's all kinds of things. And it was an interesting experience for me because, yes, I did read some books, of course. But Saint Germain wanted me to do this whole series with no symbols or imagery. Now for me, okay, just sort of being an artist, it was okay to do childlike, mythological sorts of things, but then to move into like this emotional, what I would call abstract expressionism was a whole other thing. I was very scared. But I went ahead with it, and it was all about intuition, okay? And patience. It isn't like I knew all this stuff about prima materia because I didn't. So that's how I started this series. And this took a few years. This was not overnight that I did this. The other thing that he also instructed me was that all the canvases were either 22, 33, or 44, which I'm sure all of you know are very, very powerful numbers. And so they were all custom made, and they were made into, whether it was 22 by 33 or 33 by 44. Okay. Now, this was probably his biggest, what shall I say, attribute to me, was the dot. It's something I've been playing with a little bit in some of the other paintings, but never really got what it was about. And as you will see through this series of images, I went from one dot to like infinity dots, okay? And anyway, what he said is use the dot as a symbol for the expansion of space and time. A collection will create a vibration of color and sound. Does that sound familiar in the last 2 days? When used with specific intention and awareness and sound. I didn't finish this because I wanted to make a point. It changes physical matter. Isn't that what we're talking about? Isn't that what we're trying to do? So it was a little bit over the top for me first, thinking like, how are we going to use this dot? And I don't know quantum physics at this point. The string theory, whatever, it's not really in my repertoire yet. It will be later though. This is thanks to my assistant to show you that the movement and the fluidity of the dot is truly what brings the sound and the vibration. Okay. So this was one painting I did of lapis. It's thousands of dots. My idea was, if this is really true, and what is the lapis? I mean, for a lot of, alchemists, they knew, they didn't know. Some of the ones that actually did transmutation, I think they did know. And then, as we know, the material was what? Powder? What was it in spiritual? What happens to you? So what he told me at one point, which of course is going to really increase, is like, all these dots are thought forms. We have thousands of thought forms. There's thousands of philosopher's stone. Okay, there isn't just one stone. Anyway, the other part of this was like, because even in these last couple of days, what I've been listening to is like, alchemy is not linear. So you can't do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can, but you don't have to. So, this was, I think, my 6th painting. And, again, intellectually, it was like, why are we doing the lapis in the middle of 33 paintings? That always bugged me. Because, everything else I read, everything else I was doing was like, you have to do it this way. Then you have to do it this way. Why? If it's not linear. That's a very important thing that I know you were talking about also. That we need to raise our consciousness just so we're aware of it. That's the beginning. The biggest thing I learned in doing these was like to create the space, just in your head, That's the beginning of the whole process. Okay, sorry. Okay, my first contact, however, were all these images. And I'm not, I don't want to say dinging these images. But at first, for me, it was like, whoa, wait a minute. We're burning people here? I don't think so. And over here, what are we doing? We're praying to this? I mean, why are we doing that? So, I didn't get it, obviously. And like most of us, I'm sure it isn't like overnight now, is it? Here we're going to burn Saturn, we have the dove, we have the albedo, and of course we have our, great alchemist underneath here burning everything. Okay. Then a dragon, of course, lots of dragons. Well, thank God, at least at the first round, I remember Archangel Michael saying to me, right, because I said, this is kind of like surreal. I mean, I wouldn't say poppycock, that would be someone else. But anyway, why are they doing this? So this is what he said, which is profound, I have to say. You're old dragons. You must devour the dragons of illusion. Then you can become whole again. And what are we saying in alchemy? Aren't we the dragon? About at least 3 or 4 times from what I've read. Of course, isn't that the whole point of it's so convoluted. You read one from the 12th and one from the 16th. And of course, they are different periods of time. But my head started moving. It's like, why are there so many differences? If you just look through stages, which I'm sure most of you have, you can go from what? 3, 7, 12, 24, all the way up to 84. How could you have 84? Well, I'll tell you in a minute. If I can figure it out. Here's a dragon that I feel like, made it through the doorway. It's Hermes Trismegistus, but it shows you different, operations, that you go through with the sun, the moon, and so on. And some of this, is very interesting. I got obsessed with this. Don't think I didn't, just close the book and say, oh, it's just too phantasmagoric for me. The other thing was, I sort of liked that there was this whole angelic thing going on. Since I'm talking to 4 of them, I was curious of how they go in and out here, with these images, which I think, is important. Here we go. Now, this always got me too, because, and it's very true though, but it's very true where I'm going to go with this. Everything is in the vessel. Isn't that why we call it hermetically sealed? Everyone in this room already has everything that's in this vessel. We all have this. This is part of that awareness of when you're the dot. And it's like, you either accept, all right, this is the easiest way to put it, I think, at least with the dot. It's either an unlimited universe or it isn't. Unlimited means everything and nothing, which is where Saint Germain and angels are going to go with this. So you can't pick in your life what you like is unlimited and what isn't. You're either going to start one way or another. The only way you're going to actually achieve that awareness that we're talking about, and Alan was talking about, is if indeed we think that way. Okay, let's see where we are. Oh yes, and then it can get quite brutal also. But of course I know people say, well, it's allegorical, James, and it's metaphorical. Granted, but do you know that the first time you see these, and when you read some of the texts, and you read the recipes of urine and dung, and does it make you wonder a little bit? Just asking. Oh, and one of my favorites, at least the alchemist is talking to the angel. Instead of, because, there is something to that, of course, even at the time period, I think it's like 1500s. And then you have the Athenor, the furnace in the back here, to prove that there is that sacredness. Okay, I think we made it like that. And this one I love, talk about, Mr. Sunman. Where do you think he came from? Again, everything's in the vessel. You know, whether it's the dragon, whether it's the alchemist, whether it's the peacock, we're all in there. The whole point of alchemy is to move through all this stuff and come out smelling like a rose. How about that? There's very, you know, at least from my point of view, very geometrical, almost, well, mathematical, like Bohm stuff here, that takes you to this transcendence. Okay? The other thing is, this is my line now. Either you're going to feed the purse or you're going to feed your soul. I mean, there's so much criticism, I mean, depending on the scientists in the book you're reading, of what was going on with the alchemy. I mean, they weren't all making gold, we all know that. But by the late 1700s, we got Isaac Newton, we got the Age of Reason coming through. Mentality's changing, you know? Alchemy's on the downrise. And this caricature thing, I think is great. This is showing you what we really think of alchemy. Okay, these are the scientific thinkers of the world at this time. This one, though, I really do love, because it shows you as above, so below, of course, and physically. You know, here we are looking at the stars, examining, exploring the stars. Obviously, we're revering the stars. And down here, what are we doing? It's the earth, okay? And there's sort of, I think, what this is supposed to be. It's not the runes, but it can almost even be a language. But what I get is, because other cultures, when Alan was talking before, you know, you look down at the center of the earth is when you see stars. So it isn't always up here. You know, you're right, it's both. Okay. The other thing, of course, that I know all of you know this, but I couldn't resist showing, can you imagine what it would be like to be burned at the stake and be tortured because you're trying to move forward in enlightenment? I mean, can we even wrap our heads around that? The other thing is, I think it was in one of these presentations the other day, someone said, what would be the real fear? This is a great painting explosion. Can you imagine sitting around for months and months and months as your puffer, you know, keeping this furnace going? And if you don't, what happens? You failed. You don't get the gold. You don't get the gold anywhere, though. Is what happens. Okay. This is one of my favorites. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to see, but look at these little cherubs, you know, with a telescope. And they're up here, and here we have, you know, the planets and the chart. I love this because I think this is really, again, even like an Alice, but this is where we are, really. We're all excited about the universe. And it's childlike. It doesn't have to be so serious that you can't even look at serious. Okay. So here was my chore. I had to do 33 paintings. These are just some of the ones I did. And you can see that they were all, like I said, they're all different sizes because that's what I had to do. Most of you, of course, know sulfur. This is really what we call vulgar sulfur. I'm not, you know, not kidding anyone. And the moon, of course, is Luna. Aurora Consurgence is, you know, part of St. Thomas Aquinas. This stuff, there's a lot of, you know, obviously sun-moon connection. Separation was a great one to do, just color. Sublimation is kind of interesting the way that this came through. It's like this big ladder, you know, moving on to the heavens. Now the heart of gold, I did this one because I thought at one point, and I'm sure, you know, it's not only me thinking this, but, you know, what if, at least on the spiritual alchemy, what if all it was that you had to open your heart? You know, because we do have this saying, heart of gold. You know what I'm saying? So I decided to do a heart of gold. But of course, from an alchemical point of view, you know, the alchemists believed the heart was the center of the universe. So I had a bigger heart. And a bigger heart after that one. And, you know, it keeps going. Because it's all connected. Now at this stage, you can see it's kind of dot-oriented. I'm starting to move into a different place. All right. I sort of, you know, touched on this. This is from the 1600s, the 4 stages that we were talking about before. I did the same thing, but of course, and I'm just saying this in the moment, if I ever thought I'd be actually talking about this at a Rosicrucian conference and I used roses for the stages of alchemy, I mean, that's definitely a surprise. But I did. For Negrito, I used these red roses. It's kind of hard to see, but they're all crying. Okay? And it's very black, you know, all these hills and stuff. Why red? I have a black rose here, just to remind you of Negrito. And I have a white rose up here that's not crying. That's going to be albedo. And my idea was, because I love this term in alchemy of, you know, we were talking about dew the other day, but the other one is tears. And which is kind of a similar thing, but not really. And also sweat, that they said they were crystallized thoughts. Isn't that a perfect term for like when we're going through all this alchemical operations and crying and tearing and emotion? I think so. In this albedo, which is just white, the other one that I actually did, this comes from another painting, I used a white rose, of course, and then the tile cross. The citron, how do you say that? Citron. No, it's citron, I heard that today. Citronitas. Who said that? The librarian.
Citronitas.
Yeah, citronitas, right. Of course, it's all yellow. And then the rubedo was very interesting for me because it's all roses. I mean, these are droopy roses, by the way. These roses up here were all very straight up front, but they were purple. And we did it on purpose. It was to bring in the divine feminine at this time, which is also why we have Uriel over here as a woman, which I'm sure, well, maybe you didn't know it was Uriel, of course, because, you know, she appeared to Kelly, you know, Enoch, the men, right, as a man. But I was told this, because they're all androgynous anyway, that she would come as a woman. And that's why I have that painting. Okay. Now, the greatest gift that the angels gave me is to exercise this inner alchemy, or you call it spiritual alchemy, whatever word you use. It's very simple, but it's very powerful, and it's very profound. It's a doorway to open for your imagination, intuition, interpretation, so that you may embody your true unlimited human potential. And to be, I can say, standing here, that's exactly what the archangels want you to do. So, you surrender to trust everything and nothing. You trust to allow everything and nothing. You allow to receive everything and nothing. And you receive to accept everything and nothing. Why are we saying everything and nothing? I'm sure that's triggered a few. As the angel said to me, most of you are masters of nothing. You have that down. But if you want to do everything, you're all crawling in your seats. That's the one we're working on. That's the comfort zone that hits us the most. Okay, I did 4 angels. Here we go. This is really all their matrix or grid. Okay? And the surrender here is Archangel Michael. Trust is Archangel Raphael. Because I don't have to do that with high tech here. Gabriel is allow. And Uriel is receive. And she's called Music of the Spheres, but she's also called the Archangel of Alchemy, which I found interesting. Way before I thought I'd ever be up here on the floor. And her idea here is, see all this? This is like all the operations. Remember we were talking about sound the other day? She calls it the music of the spheres. The other thing that I did not notice until after I painted this, but this is so alchemical. Look here. The retort, right in her body. So, after that, we decided to even go deeper into the star meditation. The first painting I did was called Imaginatrix. It pretty much is like everything. But of course it also has to be nothing. So we're back to the dots again, and this is really where I, go off the charts. There are exactly 108 lines in this painting. If you know what 108 is, Jermaine should verse my mother. The way I did these, though, is very meditative and very powerful. Every line of color, like we were talking last night in toning, okay, is a specific intention. The biggest thing I learned about this intention thing, because this is like in our collective, oh, I have to have intent, have to have intent. Try having specific intent. That's when it manifests. Okay, and the reason I say this is I did but you'll see, probably like 700 so far. So after that many intentions, I think I get that it works, okay? And that the physical matter is changing. That's why we're doing it. Okay, so anyway, the process is, the color is to bring the color, and then I do these dots with the matchstick, so it's very meditative. And on this particular one, it was doubled. It's almost like, James, if you don't get it, or anyone else that's going to view it, we're going to do it twice. And we did. I did this line here, and then over here, I did the same line. Okay. Well, then they wanted to go to a whole nother level, okay, where we have surrender, trust, allow, and receive. And again, these are all specific intentions. So for example, in this painting of surrender, it isn't like I just blanket surrender and did 42 lines. Okay? It's important. My first line is surrender to trust everything and nothing. My next line, for example, could be surrender to your higher self with no restriction, etc., 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 okay? Same thing with trust. Then we go to allow and receive, which turns out to be now a ring. But it doesn't matter. It did the same thing. So that in all the dots, the ring itself is an intention. The interesting one to me is receive. Because, I kept on flippantly saying, I'm working on that release painting. And then I caught myself and said, oh no, I mean receive painting. And then, it just, after doing quite a few lines, I realized, you have to release everything in order to receive everything. Okay. According to the angels, we were talking about the golden age the other day. Well, I'm just going to declare, okay, we're in a new renaissance. That's what we're in. Alchemy of the heart is the magic of the divine. Receive all you are and all you can be. You must love and forgive others. That is the catalyst to the outcome of your wholeness, which is a very interesting line from your own. The other thing that I don't know if I'm proposing, but I can tell you that it's godly, is that the new icon or new logo, or that's not the right word, symbol for alchemy for the new golden age will be a golden dolphin. I've already written a children's book and already starting to bring the energy in. That's what it'll be this round. Okay, I wasn't sure I was going to show you this, but now I think I can. What have we been saying through the whole conference? Spirit is matter, matter is spirit. If you look at this picture, and it is not, I didn't do anything. My hand is disappearing in this painting. This is the last painting I did of acceptance. And it is called Acceptance of All You Are. The other part of my arm, as you can see, is disappearing. This is showing us, okay, in the physical, that we are spirit matter. Okay, and again, alchemically, as we know, this is Negrito. This is black gesso. This is my first one. Now, I've never really done this before, but I knew I was going to be here. I didn't know I was going to have a painting done. So every layer is an alchemical operation. Negrito, calcination, the red, burning. Solutio, or what you would call dissolution in this group. These blues of different kinds of water. Separation, actually separating. What I call actually conuncio and mortificatio, which is just another form of part of because all these morph into them. So that was the other thing. I haven't even been in the laboratory to do this, but from the people I've talked to, these things all morph, That's why they have so much patience. They were like there all the time waiting for this exact moment when this is going to happen. And the peacock's going to appear. This was big stuff. Okay. Anyway, in this albedo, actually there's a lot of angels people say the citric a task. Is that right? And then, of course, for Vito, it's very red. And this is all the layers of this painting. Okay. But then I had to do the intentions. How do you accept all who you are without any intentions? You don't. So some, alchemists would call this really deep, purple here, philosophical sulfur. But it's the line and the cosmic dots again that are going to go through this whole thing again. And what's interesting in this one is that it's 101 lines. Remember, I think it was Decantal was talking about 1 and 0 in Egypt. In numerology, you can just figure this out. Okay? There's so many interpretations coming here. And this is the final painting. It's called Acceptance of All Who You Are. And that's the last one I just finished. So in closing, I just want to say 2 things. Well, maybe more than 2 things. After I finished, when I was working on these paintings, I also was working on stone. And that's why a lot of you are going to come this afternoon. It will show you how the inner alchemy is everything and nothing, and the magnitude that it can go. And what I mean by that is, let's see if I can do it here. This is star dreaming, which is 22 acres of 385 tons of stone, which 350 of them I moved by hand with a crowbar and a pipe. And then chipped by hand with a chisel and a sledgehammer, 40 tons. So we have 5 labyrinths, and we have various temples. Almost everything we've talked about these last 2 days. We have the Milky Way, we have, of course, the Temple of Stars, we have lightning, we have, the grandmothers, the grandfathers, the sun, rainbow serpent, which of course is in many. And then I also have a whale up here that is filled with all the chips of old stone. Now, alchemically, what is so interesting about this for me, as it would probably be for you, is that when you chip stone like that, you are opening that alchemical fire, and you open the memories of that stone. That makes it very unique in, as you want to say, sanctum, sanctuary, for people to walk in spirals, right? The Milky Way, which I found very interesting, we've shown the Milky Way is all black obsidian. So it transmutes karma. Every temple is aligned to the sun and the moon and stars. They're all different, they all have different energies. I think that's all I really want to say, except once I finished all this, you notice this? One huge heart. And the road that you're going to come in on, thank God it's still there. Last deluge that Melissa and I were talking about had so much rain that I haven't been up in an airplane yet to see, but I'll bet you the heart has been reshaped. Okay? Because we had so much rain. Anyway, this road, which you will go in on, actually is the spirit line. So, in conclusion, I'm just going to say that if we can accept all who we are, then we become the alchemy of this time. Thank you.
I think we have some question and answer time for sure.
That's what I was going to say. If you want
Or down.
to maybe kind of take questions and kind of explain what we're going to be doing this afternoon.
Sure. No, I won't tell you that. Any questions? Yes?
When you talked about dot, D-O-T,
Yes.
had you thought of dot, D-A apostrophe A-T?
No.
Okay, it's a symbolic point in a tree that is not marked. It's usually not spelled perfectly proper. Cool.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah. Yes.
For the Rosicrucians, in the old manual, and you'd be interested in this too. Dr. Lewis talks about in the beginning was the point, and he shows how the point manifested triangulated in a circle, and that would tie in as obvious, you know, with your impressions.
Good. Yes.
Why is the golden dolphin the new symbol of the new phase of alchemy?
Well, I mean, I was told that is the main reason. But it doesn't mean, you know, for example, I'm sure there could be other, you know, movements of alchemy that isn't golden. Because from what I understand, you know, the whole point of doing this alchemy that we're all talking about is the gold, isn't it? But not the gold, the vulgar gold, but the spiritual gold. And so the dolphin is that spiritual gold. And for the kids in the other generations, a lot of us, you know, have different, have children and so on here. I mean, and that's why I wrote a kids book. Because all the children are golden dolphins. And the ones that are coming, that are even born today, okay, because I don't know if most of you know this or not, but a lot of them have karma. They're never going to go through anything. And a lot of them are already going to be where you want them to be. By the way, at least the golden dolphins will definitely have their consciousness. I don't have any questions about that. And I've been told that from different circles, councils. Yes? Or where are we? Stuff. Oh, yes.
The dot is, the nothingness, which is the cause of everything. And a good analogy for that would be drawing a circle. You need a point to draw the circle. The circle itself is the manifestation, but the center of the circle is the nothingness. That is the cause of everything, which is the symbol for love.
Yes.
Why did you choose to just use a chisel and a hammer and not bring in modern technology?
Well, unfortunately, I was told not to. So I really did honor that. The hardest part of this job when we get out there is, I'll just say something, I suppose. Actually, if you go, I'm working on the Temple of Infinity right now. I just laid 5 huge monolithic stones for equinox. But the hardest part of this job is really not, or it wasn't for me, moving the stone. Okay? It was clearing ground, because I did have a pickaxe. So it was a very ancient way, where everything had to be cleared, all weeds, whatever, and make it dirt. That way you invoke the sacred. All earth is sacred. However, if you really are going to create a sacred site, I was told that that's what you do. And I'm telling you, here in the desert, whatever you want to call this, alpine desert, and whether it doesn't rain, but even when it rains, a lot of people think when it rains, then it's real easy when the mud. No, it's not real easy. So I'm just saying that's probably the most difficult part, and that's why we did that. Yes.
One of your earlier paintings caught my attention. You had a 5-pointed star with a cross, a white cross in the middle.
Right.
Could you discuss that? Explain your the
I
process.
think that was probably Navajo. Is the one that. Can I go? I guess I can go back. See it. Or maybe
It's
it was
one of your first screens.
Yeah. Right. This is just to take you all through this. I can't. Oh, Boris. The Stargates were very, well, I should also say about Stargate, because the Stargates of the Masters became an actual form called the Stargate deck, which is now in print, but I probably will republish it, which I did years ago when this was going on.
There it is, on the left.
On the left.
Yeah.
Oh, you're my right.
Yeah.
Right?
No, the yellow one.
Oh, the yellow? Oh, Inca, okay. You said white.
I'm sorry, the cross is white.
Oh, this is the doorway to the Stargate. This is actually in Machu Picchu. It represents this is so blurry, I don't know how you guys can see this, the Southern Cross is what that is. In the Inca, this was their doorway to other dimensions. You would normally, if you're a high priest or something, you probably would, have hummingbird is the medicine that takes you to to the other worlds. The second one I did of this, which I didn't explain this, but this is the only series of paintings that they called the Galactic Template, which in listening to Alan's presentation in just the last couple of days, the whole star consciousness thing is so up, isn't it? And I remember when I was doing this is almost 13 years ago, I'm doing these paintings, that they were saying, stars are going to be so in, James. The Milky Way, right? People are going to be Milky Way conscious. Because, we're coming into 2012 and we're going to be aligned to what? Milky Way. You talk about black holes. What I'm getting for a lot of these, that's how these work, what you were explaining, is that you go through these. And I actually was going to start my presentation beginning with this actual comment that alchemy, at least for me, was like a black hole. Once I got in there, I couldn't get out of there. And I really didn't get it either. So it didn't make any sense to me. And I never thought I was ever going to do anything with it anyway, except these paintings, of course. And I thought I might be able to change Saint Germain's mind. It doesn't usually work that way. Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
James, why do you think you have a figure in your last painting of acceptance? And can you explain that?
Well, that figure is very androgynous, and it's all of us. To me, it's not really. You're saying human. It's kind of. If you look at it real close, if you come out today, you're going to see it in person because it's right in my living room. When you walk in, and Gabriel and Uriel are on both sides, is what we set up. Yes.
How did you feel physically when you were going through all this?
Well, that's part of the miracle of this, is that I didn't feel anything. They healed me every night. And this went on for years, however. So it's very psychological. When you're moving like 50 tons, for example, I started out with 200-pound stone and went to 12 tons. And I'll give you this at the end, because I know we're running out of time, this visual that was given to me by one of my guides pretty early on. I saw this ant. I could barely see this ant. It was almost invisible. So my guide, Anthazar, said, that would be you. So I immediately went to, my ego was like, so I'm going to become invisible? Are you going to teach me how to be invisible? And I said, no. See what the ant had? Well, the ant had a little piece of grass, but it was like 50 times the size of the ant. And the truth was, that is what I became, is that ant. Because I did move up 50 times. Yes?
If you could flip to the picture of the 4 archangels.
Sure. Whoops. We have all these little they really want you to see it. I think it was my assistant. She was so great. She did all these cool things. I didn't have a clue, as usual. What do you want? The 4?
Sorry.
Oh, right. Okay. The actual meditation, or you want the
angels.
there you are. Yeah, the angels were interesting because Michael said to me when I was painting this. I don't know if you noticed this or not. But again, I did a little research. I had one guy who was a friend of a friend, and he had a CD that had 1,000 images of angels, okay? From all periods, Renaissance, all the way through. There wasn't one image in there that was not human. Even Van Gogh, you can look at it, I'll show it to you. It took me 3 hours to go through it. Every angel is human. I had to say this in relation to what you were saying, because this was a big thing with them, okay? Was that, we're not human. Why do you keep making us human? We're otherworldly. So, I had this great face with Michael. I had, flesh tones, It's my ego. As an artist, it's got to be beautiful, right? And he says, no, I want you to start dotting it with blue. I was like, no one's going to ever know who you are. Anyway, so of course, all of them are blue. Because can we get this straight? They aren't. Did you have a question, or did you just want to get the visual? They have no bodies. And of course, in this period of time, what are we talking about? We're talking about, the end of days and, all that kind of stuff. Well, these are the 4 archangels that we're supposed to count. That's what Gabriel told. That's because he's got 13 trumpets. He's still trying to tell everyone, the entire universe. They're here. So, we should really honor this and try to somehow acknowledge this in ourselves, that this is the new Renaissance. Let's get excited. You know what I'm saying? Instead of, because like a lot of this stuff, it must have been really a drag to be an alchemist. Don't you think? They were so brave and courageous. I can't even imagine. We don't have to do that. There's probably more alchemists in here than there was in all those other periods. And there's more people reading about alchemy worldwide. So why not take advantage? Anyway, isn't my time over?